told him, like, I'm not just sitting around, I'm living my life and you're working on you.
It's you and my friends and my kids and everyone against me.
When Kourtney Kardashian first got married to Travis Barker, she was convinced that she had finally found her happily ever after. But now it's clear that he's been avoiding both her and their son Rocky, which has completely turned her world upside down. But even though Kourtney is seriously struggling emotionally, the whole situation is even more devastating to Rocky. The truth about how his crumbling blended family rejected him is truly heartbreaking. It didn't take long for Kourtney to fall head over heels for Travis when they first started dating, but she was so blinded by the excitement of the honeymoon phase that she didn't even realize that Travis had been love bombing her, and the reason why was extremely shady. Travis knew that Kourtney had tried for years to make her relationship with Scott work, despite how terribly he treated her a lot of the time. So when he started dating her, he didn't even have to do anything outrageous to impress her. But Kourtney was so happy to have a boyfriend who seemed interested in her that she didn't see Travis's selfish, manipulative side. By the time they got married, the thrill of the honeymoon phase had gradually started to fade away. But it wasn't until Rocky was born that Travis made a complete 180 and no longer tried to hide his true colors. When he made the switch from love bombing Kourtney to leaving her home alone with their newborn son, it supposedly felt like an absolute nightmare for her. Instead of bonding with their son together like she had hoped, Travis seemed to have lost all interest in both her and Rocky. But that wasn't all. On top of being ignored by his own father, Rocky also wasn't accepted by his siblings. Even before he was born, Travis's 20-year-old son, Landon, made it clear that he wasn't excited about the upcoming arrival of his little brother. In September, he made a guest appearance on The Zach Sang Show, where he made an unbelievable confession. Landon admitted that he was disappointed that he wouldn't be the only Barker boy for much longer. Landon also mentioned that it was unfortunate that he was going to have a little brother soon, but it seemed like his jealousy and disapproval only got worse after Rocky was born. What he revealed at the end of November was seriously shocking. People magazine reported that when Landon appeared on the Sirius XM's TikTok radio, he made a bizarre confession. He said that he had no interest in helping out with his baby brother, and he claimed that he still hadn't held it, which was a cruel dig at baby Rocky. But there's a strong chance that Landon wasn't alone in feeling bitter about his little brother. Alabama had been the baby of the family for basically her entire childhood before Rocky was born. But to be honest, none of his siblings seems to have really interacted much with him at all, which is probably only going to get more difficult in the future. Instead of being able to bond with his big brothers and sisters, Rocky might end up just having to live with a tense family dynamic. But any resentment they may feel toward him obviously isn't his fault, so it's insane that he's already been rejected by some of them. Even though Rocky is too young to understand what that emotion is yet, he's most likely still been feeling pretty unhappy lately. After all, his parents' marriage has been falling apart for months, which has reportedly led to Kourtney's emotional state being absolutely terrible. Since babies rely on their parents to teach them basically everything, they learn to interpret the world through their parents' emotional responses and behavior. But sadly, Rocky hasn't really had much time at all to actually observe his dad. According to the U.S. Sun, just days after Rocky was born, Travis started spending most of his time hanging out with his friends and bandmates. Not surprisingly, Kourtney was supposedly seriously devastated by how uninvolved he was with both her and their newborn son. At the time, Kourtney shared a few cryptic posts about her depression and anxiety on her lifestyle brand's social media page. But even though she was miserable about how detached Travis had become, what happened next was honestly unexpected. In January, things got a lot worse when Shanna Moakler, Travis's ex-wife and baby mama, appeared on an episode of Bunny's XO's Dumb Blonde podcast. She completely exposed Travis as an awful dad and also revealed that he had a very toxic relationship pattern. Shanna explained that in each of Travis's marriages, he ended up cheating and distancing himself. She added that he barely ever helped her with their kids, which meant she was almost always taking care of them on her own. Unfortunately, a lot of that sounds remarkably similar to what he's been putting Kourtney through lately. Shanna also shared that when she and Travis were still together, he had managed to hide his substance use issues from her for years. Whenever he went on tour, he allegedly spent a lot of time being under the influence. How she finally discovered he had been using substances was truly unbelievable. Shanna mentioned that she realized that Travis had been keeping his scary habit a secret when he was sent home from a tour early. Apparently, he had been consuming so many substances that he couldn't even play the drums, and his bandmates decided he needed help. However, the timing of Shanna's revelations couldn't have been worse for Kourtney's mental health. Only 1 month after the podcast episode was released, Travis was scheduled to leave for Blink-182's string of Australian concerts, which kicked off the start of their global tour. Shanna had exposed how Travis used to act while on tour, so Kourtney was probably worried that he would end up partying all night and potentially cheat on her too. Travis had obviously already started to repeat history by acting completely uninterested uninterested and uninvolved with his wife and newborn son. But now, Kourtney was worried that he would fall back into the same cycle he had in the past. Would he end up cheating on her next? Kourtney was supposedly in a panic state of desperation to keep her marriage from failing, but she also wanted to keep an eye on Travis when he was on tour. According to the U.S. Sun, when he flew to Australia in the beginning of February to perform with his bandmates on tour, Kourtney made a bizarre choice. Not only had she decided to tag along with Travis, but she also turned the trip into a family vacation. She brought their 3-month-old son, as well as Penelope and Rain, with her across the world in an attempt to fix her deteriorating marriage. But for Rocky, the trip has most likely been extremely confusing. There's probably little to no routine in Rocky's life right now, since the family is so far away from their home. But according to Baby Center, what many parenting experts believe about babies and routines is honestly unreal. It turns out that most experts claim that babies usually start forming and relying on routines between 2 and 4 months old. Rocky was exactly in the middle of that age range when his sleep and feeding schedules were disrupted by his first ever flight, which was over 15 hours long. And that was only the start of how his entire world has pretty much been turned upside down. The trip to Australia marks Rocky's first time being taken out in public as well. But the experience probably seems even weirder to him because of how many aspects of his life have been changing on a daily basis. A source who recently spoke to the U.S. Sun claimed that even though Kourtney has a team of hired staff with her in Australia to help her, she's still having a tough time. Allegedly, the trip has been way more emotionally draining than she thought it would be. On top of trying to keep Travis interested by acting clingier than ever, Kourtney has reportedly been struggling to take care of her kids so far away from home. She's recently been spotted sightseeing in Australia with Penelope and Rain, but not Rocky, who must be feeling totally overwhelmed. While Kourtney and her older kids have been tagging along to a couple of Travis's shows and hitting up places like amusement parks, Rocky has been excluded. He's regularly been left behind with his mom's helpers, which has resulted in a crazy new accusation. According to the U.S. Sun, Kourtney and Travis have been accused of being neglectful parents lately. Not only is Rocky seemingly out of sight, out of mind, but the older kids also don't appear to have been supervised very well during some of the recent shows they've been to. Kourtney has clearly been stressed out and disappointed lately with Travis's lack of involvement as a husband and father. But the situation isn't very fair to Rocky at all. He basically has no consistency in his life right now, and he's been left with caregivers more often than ever before. When Rocky is with Kourtney, her unhappiness and anxiety probably affects his emotions. But no matter how clingy she is or what she does to try to keep Travis around, she won't be able to prevent him from repeating history. He's been falling back into his toxic cycle of being an absent father and husband ever since Rocky was born. And it's absolutely heartbreaking that Rocky has experienced so much instability and family tension already. But unfortunately, it seems like things are only going to get more challenging for him. Travis has been becoming increasingly distant from his family, which is obviously going to hurt Rocky a lot. But because of his absence and the fact that none of the kids seem to accept their baby brother, Kourtney's dream of having a happy, blended family has basically been crushed. Sadly, that means whenever Rocky isn't being left in the care of Kourtney's helpers, he's going to keep picking up on his mom's emotional turmoil. He's been suffering the most in this entire ordeal, which might cause him to have trouble forming healthy attachments in the future. Hopefully, the tense family dynamic changes for the better so that Rocky gets the chance to experience more positivity and happiness. But now that we've gotten into the tragic situation that Rocky is in, I want to know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on Travis and Kourtney both being accused of being neglectful parents lately? What do you think about everything that Rocky has experienced already in his short life, including being let down by basically everyone in his family? Let me know in the comments below.